Welcome to all my listeners out there. Welcome to Is Your Way in Your Way? And I'm your host, Cassandra Crawley Mayo. And this, for my listeners or for new listeners, this podcast is about individuals who are ready. I mean, really ready to move forward in their lives, overcome obstacles, mitigate those self-imposed barriers, even those external barriers that's preventing you from living your best life. And we talk about topics related to self improvement, personal and business development. And today, our topic is going to be about when I grow up. And I want to introduce my guest to all of you. And her name is Steph Katzovi. And what I'd like to do is welcome Steph to the podcast. And I'd like to read her bio before we get started. Now, Beth was and this is amazing to me. In the third grade, Steph announced that she was going to be an author when she grew up. Now, imagine that in the third grade now. Now, realizing she might want to explore other career options first, she received her bachelor's degree from Binghamton University before attending Brooklyn Law School, although she aced the legal writing classes and wrote amazing outlines for exams. Steph knew her calling was not as a practicing attorney. But listen to this. This is amazing. After she graduated, she shelved her law degree and 2 bar admissions to become a professional writer. She spent the bulk of her 15 plus year career at Deloitte as a speechwriter and strategic communications consultant. But when the opportunity arose to raise her children and focus more fully on creative writing, Steph decided it was time to take her When I Grow Up essay from third grade a bit more seriously. So, the one constant that has endured throughout Steph's life and career is her desire to connect with others through wit, humor, and warmth. And when she's not busy writing at her desk in New York City, Steph is a sports and exercise enthusiast. She also enjoys playing the guitar and piano with her 2 sons, going out on date nights with her husband, and reading, preferably reading at the poolside. Again, welcome, Steph. It's great to have you. And we're going to talk about when I grow up. Thought that was fascinating. But what I'd like to know, you did this When I Grow Up essay. Tell us about that. What was that essay about?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on. I think your podcast is so inspirational. So it's an honor to be with you and to be with your listeners. If I could go back into the mind of when I was in third grade, I guess I was 8.5. And, you get those essays in school where the teacher throws out, what do you want to be? And people say like fireman, policeman, nurse, teacher. Not a lot of people saying accountants, I'm guessing. But for me, the answer was I wanted to be a writer. I loved writing stories. I loved being creative. Writing was my passion as a kid. And I think there was a part of me that was a bit practical. So as you read my bio, I was like, yeah, that was true. I was really good at writing, but I knew that if I wanted to really be a writer, I sort of needed to get experience in other areas than just the creative side. Mm-hmm. Also, I probably wanted to pay off my law degree, so I needed to get a job that could help pay the bills. But in the back of my mind, I knew, if someday I could write a book, or in my case, hopefully books, I would consider that essay When I Grew Up to be something that took a long time to come true, but it really actually has. And I'm so thrilled and delighted to be able to follow my passions the way I am.
I am too. That is amazing. You are so right. When we're young, we want to be a nurse, or for myself, I wanted to be an anesthesiologist.
Oh, wow.
yeah, I wanted to do that. And then I wanted to be a teacher and, but what just, in preparation for our conversation today, I thought about when I was about your age, I used to
Mhm,
love to write. I wrote short
mhm.
stories but never really thought anything of it, never really thought that that's something that I could do or aspire to do. So you so my other question, you talked about a passion, and you talked about writing was your passion, but the reason you probably went to school and did the law degree is because you needed to pay for your college and all of that. But what made you pivot? I mean, once you had a great career, but then all of a sudden you made the decision that you were going to stop
It
working in that
was,
capacity? I mean, you worked so hard, you studied, you
yeah.
passed the bar. What happened?
I've been asked that question a lot, and I wish that I'd come up with a better answer. Every time I answer it, it's the same answer, basically. I worked for a very senior executive at Deloitte. He was a fantastic leader, a fantastic person. And at the point of my career, I said, I could continue working when he's about to retire. I can continue working for a different partner or a different part of the firm. But that would mean I'd have to start all over again with a person I'd spent so many years developing a relationship with.
Yeah.
And, I kind of was thinking, oh, there's a bunch of really great people that work at my company, but it's going to be a whole lot of work just to renew that level of trust that I gained with him. And at the time, I had 2 young children, and I was thinking how much I would love to be a really big part of their lives. But at the same time, in the back of my head, as soon as I had given birth and I had like half an hour during a nap or an hour during a nap, I started
Yeah.
outlining an idea I'd had for a book, for many, many years. And with
Wow.
each day, I was like, I really kind of want to see this book thing through.
Hmm.
And I really kind of want to be with my kids. And how can I do that in an environment where, in a corporate environment, you have to deliver on different responsibilities. If something needs to get done, you really can't say, oh, I kind of wanted to just finish what I was working on with my book. So when my boss retired, I thought this might be a great time for me to quote unquote retire too. And I was fortunate
Yeah.
enough, my husband was supportive and believed in me. And it wasn't an easy choice, because I think leaving a corporate job where you're, in an amazing position, working with great people, it's a really hard decision to make. But I really weighed what my options would be over the long term. And I just like the thought of being with my kids and watching them grow and having such an important part in their lives when they're young. And, it was just overwhelmingly powerful for me to take that big
Yeah.
step. And I'll tell you, it was perhaps one of the hardest decisions I've ever made, and the scariest too.
Mhm.
You often wonder what would have happened if you didn't make that choice, but I
Mhm.
choose to be really happy with my choices and to live in the present, and feel very grateful that I was able to follow through on that.
That's great. I mean, that is so great. Now, I'm kind of curious. Now, you had young children when you
Hmm.
did that. You wanted to write and started writing, I'm sure. How did you, we hear a lot about this work-life balance. How
Hmm.
were you able to do that? Tell the listeners now. What is that about? How I want to know that. How did you do that?
I don't think I mastered it. I'll tell you, work-life balance means you subtract sleep from your day.
Hmm.
Um, I was fortunate that we had some folks that were able to help, but it really didn't get to a level where I could focus until my kids started in nursery school. So
Okay.
um, it took a while for things to really get up and running. But I think in a way it was good to have that time, because going from corporate America, where you show up at a certain time every day and stay until whenever, to nobody's expecting a book from me. There was, nobody knocking on my door saying, how are you doing? Did you finish that chapter? Are you
Yeah.
almost done? So it was
Yeah.
almost like the safety net of accountability was pulled out from under me. And the only motivator was myself. And it's
Mhm.
not an easy thing to do, to stay motivated and to stay focused and to be really keeping your eye on finishing something that you have no idea really how to make that happen. I mean, for me, I spent many, many years writing in a professional setting, and
Yeah.
going from professional to creative is very different. And I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many drafts of the book I've had where I've written, rewritten, rewrote it again, and then rewrote it 5 more times. But it was a wonderful learning experience, extremely humbling to know
Hmm.
that there is so much that a person can learn. And mostly learning by failure helped me hopefully ultimately achieve to write great books and really connect with audiences.
Wow, you said something interesting, learn by failure. And many times when we fail, there are some people that give up. So what was your, when you failed, like tell us about something you failed in, and when you did do so, what did you do to pull yourself up and move forward?
I think that for me, I'm a very determined and motivated person. And so when I thought I had finished an early draft of the book, I was really excited. I thought it was an amazing story and the world was going to love it and embrace it. And so I sent it out to a bunch of literary agents to say, help me get this book published. I'm really
Mhm.
excited. It's fantastic. You're going to love it. And I would say that I was rejected by all of them. And they said, this is a lovely story, but really not right for me. I'm not sure I can get behind it to support it the way it needs to be supported.
Wow.
My list of clients is full, so sorry, I don't have time. And that was a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
Because, when you put your heart and soul into
Yep.
something, you think it's really amazing. And, I'm not somebody that says everything I do is wonderful and amazing, but I really, really felt strongly that I had written something special. And that was a really, really tough message to get. But on the other hand, if these folks know about the publishing industry, they must know something that I don't know. So I went back and I
Yes.
revised my book further. And
Hmm.
this time around, I just said, I'm going to publish it no matter what, because I am really proud of this book and I'm
Good.
going to do it. And so that's why I went the way I did. And, hopefully someday the world will join me in saying, yes, this is an amazing book. But now I'm just
Awesome.
doing it one person at a time,
Yeah.
meeting people
Wow.
like you and just trying to share my vision and trying to share my passion and my interests and hopefully funny stories that people relate to.
Right. So, the name of my podcast is Your Way in Your Way. And the reason the name is there because my book is titled Is Your Way in Your Way. And there's so many of us that are in our way that it stops us. We get stuck on doing what it is that we wanted to do. And you could have been in your way in regards to all the turn downs and rejections, so to speak. And you
Mhm.
just decided because of your character, you were determined. And plus, it appears you're a structured individual as well. So you were determined, you were motivated to make sure that you follow through on what your passion was, and kudos for that. Now, the book we're talking about, was that the Harry Camp?
Yes,
That
it is.
particular book? Well, there it is, the Harry Camp. Now, just so everyone knows, she is now an award-winning author. She just won the Purple Dragonfly Book Award. And what she's going to do is share what that award is all about. What is a Purple Dragonfly Book Award? And why did you get that on that book that, now listen, listeners, that she has sent to literary agents, traditional publishing companies? They rejected her, but look what happened. She kept it moving and she's received an award. Tell us about that award.
Well, it is from the Story Monsters group, and they are partners with parents, schools, and different educators, and also have great partnerships with Scholastic, the book company, and they recognize artists and writers and individuals that have creative works that they deem to have exceptional literary merit. So I was
Wow.
very, very honored to be recognized in a group of an amazing bunch of folks, and mine was in the middle grade fiction category, which is books that are targeted to 8 to 12 year olds. And so
Yeah.
it's a big deal for me because as we talked about, you never know if people are going to find the same level of passion that you put in. You don't know if you're going to get that back on the other side. And so for
Exactly.
me, that validation was really rewarding, that maybe I am on the right track. And
Yeah.
sometimes you wonder if you're following your own path and the rest of the world is on a different path. But hopefully eventually things can meet at some point down the road. And hopefully, I know I've said hopefully a lot, but I'm optimistic, and I can't stress enough how I'm really just looking forward to where these next stages of my life and writing take me.
Wow, congratulations. That's an honor. I'm so happy for you. It kind of reminds me of one of your favorite quotes from Mahatma Gandhi. In a gentle way, you can shake the world. And although it didn't shake like you initially wanted it to shake, but you shake it
Mm-hmm.
down, particularly because you received this award. Now, I was reading a little bit about the book, and I just, it although it's fiction, you talk about how children they have challenges as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it was about a little girl, Noodle Newman's um, experience. And kind of tell the audience a little bit about her story. And what I've read, it sounds like her story could be our story, with the difference in the challenges that we have. Tell us about the challenges and how she overcame them.
Well, it was an interesting story to write because the focus in the book is on her going to sleepaway camp for the first time. And she's just under 11 years old and has never been away from home before. And as she gets to camp, she realizes that the independence that is thrust upon her is not something she was quite ready for. And so she
Mhm.
struggles with how to live her own life and not have the support of her parents, right nearby. And she goes through a bunch of adventures and misadventures, if you will, and discovers that the complicated relationships of preteens are interesting challenges in and of themselves. But her road to discovering her inner courage, is a road that she walks down and is able to overcome homesickness, make great friends, and have an amazing experience away from home and have great memories. And so I think for me, writing that was not only a little bit of a sprinkle from my own past, but I
Yeah.
think even as an adult, we go through experiences, the unknown. Not every day can be the same. You can't wake up and expect to be able to face every challenge because you're going to anticipate or foresee it. And so I think a lot of the themes that I talk about in the book are things that you can go through at any age, at any stage of your
Yeah.
life. And the sleepaway camp element was really so that I could take the parents away from the story that I wanted to tell, and do it in a safe way.
Right, right. Yeah, I was kind of curious to, where did that story come from? So it looks like a little sprinkle, a little bit of you and and probably your boys too. You
Yeah.
know, and the fascinating thing is a sequel. It's
Yeah,
going to be a sequel in what 2024.
that's right.
So you started that already, is that correct?
Yeah, actually, I am going to be having a meeting with the illustrator for the book for my second book, which is also about the experiences at camp. But this one will focus on the friendship between the two best friends in the book and the challenges that they go through as they discover what their passions are, which might not always be the same. So
Right.
it's a similar theme to growth and discovery and transformation, but a different twist on it. And, again, like I really want to tell the stories that I have from my own experiences. When I was a child, I went to sleepaway camp, and candidly, I did not care for it.
Okay.
But what's different about my book and my real life experience is that the main character in my book sticks it out and eventually loves camp and goes back. In the
Yeah.
real world, I stuck it out and never really liked camp. I didn't embrace the camp experience, and I never went back. And that has always been a big regret of mine, was the realization that if only I had pushed myself and had the inner courage to realize that I could handle things and I could have a good time. Didn't happen until as soon as I got home, and I said, you know what, I need to try harder to be less shy and to be less of an introvert.
Yeah.
And that's when I transformed my own shy character into hopefully funny Steph and class
Right.
clown Steph and best sense of humor Steph, that I actually did get the recognition in 8th and 12th grade for those.
Great. So listen, tell us about, I'm certain there are people that's read your book. What are some of the stories, or what were some of the outcomes that they shared as a result of reading your book? And I was thinking about the award that you've gotten, because a lot of kids go to camp.
Mhm.
So what a great book. And there are kids that go to camp and probably don't like it. And then
Mhm.
there's some that like it, but your story in reference to that could bring, I don't know, some revelation to some of them. So what have people shared with you about the book after they've read it? What are some of the stories you've heard?
I've had some really amazing stories from people. A lot of people, the grown-ups, have told me stories about their camp. It's on the scale of, I loved camp. It was the greatest experience too. I hated camp. I never wanted to go back. I could totally see that happening. But from the kids that have read it, and this is actually very funny to me because my sons are almost 13 and 10, and
Mhm.
all the kids in their school are just the right age to read this book. So last year, when the book came out, a lot of my friends gave the books to their children.
Mhm.
And when school started in September, one of the young ladies did a book report on my book. And my
Oh,
son was
wow.
in the class and she was talking about this book. And I know he knew the book because I read it to them. But she said,
Yeah.
this was the best book I ever read. And I took it to camp and it was so true. A lot of the things that happened in the book happened at camp and I loved it. And then someone said, hey, isn't that your mom's book? And my son said, hey, yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh.
And
That's a
I
great
was floored.
story.
He forgot to tell me that this happened, and so another person told me, "Oh, we found out your book was so and so's favorite book after the summer," and it was a really proud moment for me to have both as an author and as a mother.
Wow, that's a great story. Now, I just want to go back to our title a little bit for my listeners. Now, it's interesting because Steph always said, when I grow up, I'm going to be a writer. And so, for my listeners out there, think about when you were growing up, what is it that you wanted to be? What is it that you wanted to do? And just look what happened as Steph made, well, in other words, what she wanted, it manifested in her life. So I'm going to ask her this question like I've asked many of my guests. At this point in your life, I always say, from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you rate yourself in living your best life at this moment in time in your life? How would you rate yourself?
I'll give myself a 9 so that I have something more to aspire to. But
That's
I'm really really happy. And one thing I want to just point out because I think it's a good footnote to the point of your podcast, and that's while you can achieve the dreams that you want, you may not always achieve them in a straight path. So for
right.
me, I knew I wanted to be a writer, but
Yeah.
I wasn't sure what path to take. So I did just about everything else in the world of writing that could ultimately lead me to where I started out wanting to be, and now where I am to this day. So I think the advice that I would give is, open your eyes to the different ways you can pursue your passions and the way you can realize your dreams, but maybe not in a black and white way, but perhaps in the shades of gray that exist in between.
Right. It's not linear, is it?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
And yeah, and it's not easy, but boy, for you to be a 9, it certainly was worth it. And I can just imagine what your rating would have been when you were working and your boss decided that he was going to retire and you were like, well, this may be my perfect timing. So
Mhm.
things, I would say the stars just lined up for you. And I just think that's a beautiful thing. And I want to encourage my listeners, for those who have children or you have friends that have children that go to camp, and camp is a real big deal in the summertime. I would encourage you to get this book, and the title of the book again is Harry Camp. Okay, it's about a little girl. There's the book, Harry Camp. And to tell the listeners where they can find that book.
It's available on all major online retailers such as Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Target, Walmart. I think you can just do a Google search, and I hope it pops up. Often,
Yeah.
though, Hurricane comes up, but Hurricamp is the name of the book, and I hope you take a look at it.
Well, wow. Well, I'm definitely going to get the book because I have friends whose children go to camp and that love to read. So I'm certainly going to make sure that I get that book. And I just want to wrap this session up and remember, my listeners, think about what you wanted to do when you said, when I grow up. So I want to thank you, Steph, for being a guest on my show. And you are simply amazing. And I wish you the best on your sequel. I know you're going places. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.